I met a Gypsy.
The whole racing thing, though, like I do want to talk about it because it's like the tracks, the tracks have been like a big topic of mine, and I'm just thinking to myself like, everyone that has success in a period of, like a certain period of time has like their opinion of what it should be, and that's always almost a direct reflection of like their time
that they were successful.
Right? So I have bias to certain tracks.
Yeah.
But I think that for me it's almost the opposite, because I think I had success at certain points in part because of the way the tracks were built. Like for example, in 18, when I rode the Suzuki on the little bike, and I won San Diego, it was like for that situation, first of all, I've always kind of outweighed most everybody. It was always heavier.
Yeah.
And in that situation, we were underpowered by a lot. And it was, the star bikes are, first of all, like, I want to, some point in my life, just ride a star bike 250 outdoors.
Just to see.
Just to like do it.
Just to see.
Because they're so mental. Like just the way they look, I just want to do it to be like, oh, okay, this is what it's all about. Like, because when you have like when you're on a super mini against 85s.
They
like,
sound like they want to eat you.
Oh my God, dude. They're so sick. So like but anyway, racing against those guys on that platform and being heavy in the whole thing, like it was so difficult to even like feel like I had a chance, and this is coming from me. Like I just won the series the previous year and beat all the same guys. So it was kind of like, what's going on here? But it was really had a lot to do with that. But the tracks that was kind of the pivot point.
Was that the point that it changed?
It kind of was, yeah.
So what was
like
it like
San Diego
before?
was like the only race. San Diego, so it was like Oakland, San Diego, Tampa, all in a row. And those were all like technical tracks. Like they were tricky. They built them a little bit taller. San Diego had a pretty nasty set of whoops that were they were big like they used to be, and like big as in long, big round whoops, and spaced really far. And it takes a certain kind of like, it just takes a certain kind of thing. Like you can't just go into them. And so I think that was kind of like the beginning of the whole beginning of the season was almost like the tryout of like what they were going to do. And then there was like a few races in the middle that were really tricky, that I quite literally went from like a top 10 250 rider as the champ to like podium win and contended for, at least early contended for the win on the big bike, like all right there in a row. And the tracks were tricky, dude. And we had those quad lines at Tampa were like, like they weren't, if you cased them, like, okay, I watched at press day last year, Jet 5ing into the turn.
At A1
on press day.
That was insane.
It was mental.
Yeah.
It was like, first of all, I'm thinking like, dude, this guy is a maniac. Like, what are you doing trying that at press day? Like, that's my thought process. But like, I'm not even in the world of levels to him at that point at all. So I'm like, why is this dickhead doing this? Like, this is so gnarly. Like I was like, had like that hater feel in my gut, like that he did it. Cause I wasn't going to do it. Like, I don't even think I was tripling through it yet that day. Like it was ridiculous.
And it was like early.
It was shadows. It was rutted. It was wet. It was like everything. But okay, now let me.
I think I know where
hater perspective.
I think I know where you're going with this too.
I watched him lash
the shit out of
thing, and I'm just here to tell you that if the jump was built the way that it used to be, he would not have survived. Therefore, it had never been in his mind to try it. Just because, first of all, the distances were different too. So the jumps were bigger, they were taller, they were steeper, they were further apart. And that was just like, but they were closer to the corner. You had to come out of a corner, like right up something. So like, that's why I always go to like my area, like 2014, I think was like the best tracks were built.
Yeah.
If you go back, like, and it's funny because coincidentally, I think 2014 was like the greatest race ever raced with James at Toronto. I think that made some of the greatest racing I've ever seen in my life. Honestly, I think 2014, like they need to look at that era. And that wasn't, that was an area that I did really good in. Like I was ahead of my time as far as like, I shouldn't have been beating Jason or Dean or Malcolm or Seeley or Osborne or any of those guys that I was racing against, but I did beat those guys quite a few times. And I think it just played like that style of track just played right into my hand. Like I could ride those tracks easy.
And what was it about those tracks?
It was just more technical.
Yeah.
Big ass scary dragons backs.
Yeah.
Big. The whoops were big. I don't know if I loved the roller into the whoops. They used to have that roller.
They did.
And we all started wheeling in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was super scary.
What whoop were you putting your front wheel down on, the second one or the third one then?
It was depending on how they were built, because sometimes they would do a roll and then they'd kind of do like a stare.
Yeah.
So that you could roll and then and kind of stare in. So they would like kind of go like small, medium, big, like, but when they were roll to even, you pretty much had to set on the first big one or you were like in trouble.
Yeah.
But when they had the stare, you could kind of like and kind of buzz into them and set like on 3 or whatever. Yeah. But like I just think the way that everything was butted up to the corners, like there was some races like pretty much now you never see a line that a 450 does out of the turn that like a 250 can't do anymore.
For sure.
That could be bike development. It could be literally the new wave of 250 guys are just that sick.
Yeah.
I think that the jumps are further away from the turns. I think that they're not as like, it doesn't take as much energy away from the bike the way that you smash into the face of the old jumps. Now it's like, you have no idea how much softer my bike is now than it used to be.
Really?
I used to set my bikes up
because it had to be, right?
Stiff. Because you had to.
Yeah.
There's no
because
choice.
It was peaky and bigger. Yeah.
Because you were going to, first of all, you were going to eventually go long or case something.
Yes.
But it meant so much more.
Yeah.
Like it meant way more. Yeah. Now they're just so much less intimidating. Like I haven't walked a track in years and gone like, oh shit, like looking at anything, honestly. It hasn't been, it's been a long time since I've walked a track and went, oh shit.
And that used to be a thing, dude.
Every round used to feel like that.
I remember
to be scared.
I haven't, you know what? I haven't done a track walk with guys in a long time.
And they're like, oh
but
my God.
JDR days, I was on all the track walks. And everyone.
12,
13. Yep.
And those tracks were nasty.
And
dude, were you, okay. I talk about this race all the time. Were you at Toronto in 13?
No.
Okay. All right, then I can't really go off that hard. But in 13, in 13, well now it's just gonna feel like a Bigfoot story. But when I went to Toronto in 13, this is my rookie year.
I seen him.
I was there.
I saw it.
So like that's what it's gonna sound like. But I don't know about Twitter archives or whatever. We could ever find this or not. But
we'll find. Hey, Alex, my guy, he'll find it. Just go nuts.
Find the tweet that Reed tweeted. 2013 Toronto Supercross on media, because for whatever reason at the time they had like a media, because it was in the Rogers Center.
Yeah.
We had like a media track walk, right? So that's one of the, for what reason, that was one of the only times I've ever walked the track, not in press day, on a Friday. It's like the only time I've ever done it in my career. But on that day, it was almost like they did it on purpose. I don't know why they did it, but to me it felt like they did it on purpose because those whoops that they built were so big. I couldn't believe it. I was like, they were just so big. And keep in mind, this is 2013. So Millsaps, Kennard, Anaheim with the whoops were like, they were so tiny.
That was one of the
sickest
races,
battles,
right?
though. The sickest battles, though. I mean, the back and forth, like,
that was wild.
Don't talk about the edge of your seat, like, type of entertainment.
Yeah.
So first race for the West Coast and then the first race for the East Coast, which was my first race, was Dallas. And that was the whoop set that was so tiny. Remember when Partridge wheelied, like did the wheelie pass, like looped out and like saved it and made a pass? So those whoops were really little too. So fast forward a few races and we get to Toronto and they build these whoops that are just like, I've never seen whoops like this. Like, and so Reed tweets about it, talking some shit to them about like, oh, finally we're going to make some whoops, huh? Like, this is where you guys go to from us complaining about them being too small kind of thing.
Yeah.
So by the time we ever touched tires on them, they were smaller. So if you look at the broadcast of the race, they're still pretty good size, but they weren't like massive. They were just pretty big. But I'm not kidding you. The ones that they built they were like, no, this is what we're going to run. It was literally like, I swear, it was almost like a prank. Like they were that big.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.